Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn? This is also referred to as the Gone Girl case. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, consider supporting me on Patreon, and check out my podcast on YouTube, Bella Grande Media. I will put the relevant links for those items in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of this case, I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn were residents of Vallejo, California in 2015. They both have doctorates in physical therapy and worked in that field. They met at work in 2014 and started a romantic relationship. On the evening of March 22, 2015, the couple was at Aaron's home in Vallejo, working through some issues they were having in their relationship. Aaron had recently broken up with a former love interest. He reached out to her and expressed an interest in reuniting. Denise discovered this communication and confronted Aaron about this emotional affair with his former girlfriend. The couple talked for a while throughout the evening and decided to give their relationship another chance. Aaron was going to try to rebuild the trust. The couple went to sleep after having settled the matter. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. After the couple was asleep, a man named Matthew Muller made entry into Aaron's home. This was at about 3 a.m. on March 23. Matthew confronted the couple with a laser pointer, which they probably believed was mounted to a firearm. It's not clear if Matthew actually had a firearm. Matthew told them he was only interested in money. Matthew ordered Denise to zip tie the hands and feet of Aaron, which she did. The intruder then zip tied Denise. Matthew drugged both victims, blindfolded them, put headphones on their ears, and separated them into different rooms. Matthew extracted various financial information from Aaron, like passwords for various accounts. Matthew then told Aaron that he was going to kidnap Denise for ransom. At one point, Matthew indicated to Aaron that he was wearing a dive suit, meaning Matthew was wearing a dive suit. Aaron was cold through all this, and Matthew brought him a blanket, and that's how the discussion came up. Matthew placed Aaron on a couch and told him not to move. He put tape on the floor and placed surveillance cameras in the house. He told Aaron that he had to stay within the bounds marked by the tape or Denise would be harmed. Specifically, Matthew said he would shock her with electricity, then cut her face. During this confrontation, Denise and Aaron believed that there was more than one intruder, but based on the available evidence, it appears as though Matthew was working alone. Aaron fell asleep because of the sedatives. When he woke up, he noticed that Matthew had sent him a number of texts and emails requesting two separate payments of $8,500. This was the ransom. Aaron was unsure of what to do. He wanted to contact the authorities, but he was concerned about the threats Matthew had made. Ultimately, Aaron decided to call the police at 1:50 p.m. They arrived at his residence quickly. They unplugged the cameras left by Matthew and did not thoroughly investigate the crime scene. For example, they did not discover that window screens were cut and holes were drilled into the window locks. Later, the police would find Aaron's vehicle nearby. It was used by Matthew to kidnap Denise. The police took Aaron to the police station and focused on the idea that he had murdered Denise and was making up the story about an intruder to escape responsibility. They interrogated Aaron for 18 hours. During that same time, they failed to investigate his claim. They were not searching for the intruder. An officer named Detective Mustard accused Aaron of lying. He said he didn't want to hear stories about sophisticated, movie-like intruders. He wanted Aaron to admit that he was the killer. Aaron denied involvement in any type of crime. The police took away Aaron's phone, even though Aaron told him that the kidnapper had communicated with him on that phone. They put it in airplane mode so it could not receive messages. If they had not done this, it is possible they could have traced the kidnapper's phone. The police missed yet another opportunity to solve the crime. About 12 hours into the interrogation, the police administered a so-called lie detector test. Aaron agreed to this, believing it would help prove he was innocent, and convinced the police to actually investigate the kidnapper. Even though there were no indications that Aaron had lied, the police used a familiar deceptive tactic. They told Aaron that he failed the test by a long shot. It wasn't even close. Here we see the police were simply lying. No one can fail or pass a polygraph because they are based on pseudoscientific nonsense. As the interrogation was going on, the police made Aaron feel as though he was not free to leave. He was locked in a room, officers stood between him and the door, and Aaron's family had arrived at the police station, but the police told Aaron no one was there to see him. They wanted him to feel alone, isolated from anyone who could help him. Aaron requested to speak to an attorney, but the police continued to keep him isolated from his attorney for several more hours. Aaron's brother was an FBI agent. At one point, Detective Mustard asked Aaron's brother to help him get a confession from Aaron, saying that Aaron was having a schizophrenic breakdown. I guess Detective Mustard figured that because he was an awful police officer, he might as well try to be an awful mental health professional as well. Aaron was eventually released. The police didn't have any evidence that he committed a crime. As all this was going on, Denise was in the hands of the kidnapper. Matthew had put her in the trunk of Aaron's car and then transferred her to the trunk of another car. He then took her to his home and sexually assaulted her twice. Matthew told her that she would be released, but warned her against mentioning two items: the assault and the fact that he had been in the military. On March 24, the San Francisco Chronicle received a voice recording from Denise Huskins. This was proof of life. After hearing this, the police asked Denise Huskins' mother if Denise had ever been assaulted before. She said yes, when Denise was 12 years old. The police made up this nonsensical theory, saying that Denise was faking the kidnapping to gain attention and relive the excitement of the trauma. This demonstrates they know nothing about trauma, but then again, it doesn't appear as though they understood anything about police work either, so at least they were being consistent. At 10 a.m. on March 25, Matthew released Denise, as he said he would, dropping her off in Huntington Beach, where she used to live. Eventually, she was able to make contact with someone who called the police. The police interviewed her, and her story matched Aaron's story. Initially, Denise did not mention those two items that Matthew wanted her to keep secret. The police changed their tactic from accusing Aaron of murder, which was difficult to maintain now that Denise was found alive, to accusing the pair of orchestrating a hoax. The police offered Denise and Aaron the same deal. Whoever agreed to confess that they were lying would get immunity from prosecution. They both stuck to their original story. The police made public statements which made it clear that they did not believe Denise or Aaron. They would not refer to them as victims or witnesses. They said the couple should apologize to the community. They said the community was safe. There was nothing to fear. This was not a random attack. And the police called the investigation a wild goose chase. Based on their low level of investigative skill, to them a wild goose chase is like the Zodiac killer. In the media, Denise Huskins was compared to the protagonist from the Gone Girl book and movie. There was this idea that she faked a kidnapping in order to gain attention and punish her boyfriend. 3 anonymous emails were sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, presumably from Matthew Muller, stating that the kidnapping was real. So the kidnapper was trying to convince the police that he actually kidnapped the victim. The police continued to promote the Gone Girl narrative despite this new information. On June 5, 2015, at 3:24 a.m. in Dublin, California, an intruder made entry into a home, approached the 2 homeowners as they were sleeping, and woke them up. The male homeowner defended himself and in the resulting struggle was hit in the head with a flashlight. The intruder fled and left behind items like a cell phone, a glove, duct tape, and zip ties. 2 other similar incidents came to light as a result of the investigation into this crime, one in Mountain View and one in Palo Alto. Matthew Muller had been investigated in connection to that Palo Alto incident. The police were able to track the cell phone that was left in the Dublin, California incident to Matthew Muller. His house in South Lake Tahoe was raided by the police. Aaron Quinn's laptop was found there. Matthew Muller was arrested, and in 2016, he pleaded guilty to kidnapping Denise Huskins. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Denise and Aaron sued the Vallejo Police Department. The case settled for $2.5 million without any admission of wrongdoing. The couple would get married in 2018 and have a daughter. Now moving to my analysis. First, I'll look at the Matthew Muller situation, then I'll analyze the unbelievable behavior of law enforcement in this case. Matthew Muller was a former Marine who would later earn a law degree from Harvard. He was disbarred when he failed to repay $1,250 to a client after a court determined that he had failed to competently represent that client. Matthew Muller said that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2008. During the crimes that he was convicted of, and during other crimes that he was suspected of committing, we see a few interesting things about his tactics. Matthew wanted to appear as part of a criminal group, but would later admit that he worked alone. There was no gang. His kidnapping plans were overly intricate and complicated. He was partially dependent on manipulation to subdue his victims, like he had to talk them into restraining one another and things like that. When the one victim in Dublin, California fought back, Matthew retreated. So again, we see that he really wasn't necessarily physically capable of controlling these situations. He was somewhat dependent on manipulation. In one email allegedly written by Matthew Muller, we see this description of his journey into criminality. He kept using the word they, again making it seem as though he was part of a group. He talked about how they had been involved in car thefts, but they wanted to make more money. They were kidnapping to test their methods so they could later perpetrate a kidnapping of a higher value target. They were mortified about the effect of their crimes on Denise Huskins. They were impressed with the strength that she showed. They considered themselves like Ocean's 11. They didn't want to hurt anyone. They were gentlemen criminals. It's really not clear what caused Matthew's criminal behavior. If he was suffering from psychosis, this could explain some of it, but Matthew was much more organized than I would expect from somebody who was detached from reality. His motive was probably money and sexual domination. He may have been conflicted to some degree. For example, in some of his alleged attacks, the victims talked him out of more extreme criminal behavior. Perhaps Matthew was trying to fool himself into believing he was truly a gentleman criminal, not really hurting anybody in a serious way. He wanted to make himself believe that the victims were consenting to some degree, like he wasn't truly being violent. It would appear as though Matthew was ashamed, but he still wanted to engage in bad behavior. Now moving to the actions of the police in this case. In one sense, I think it's understandable the police were highly skeptical of Aaron's claims, especially in the very beginning. It does seem like a fanciful tale. Multiple, highly organized and technologically advanced intruders invade a home. There's no sign of the girlfriend that they kidnapped. The homeowner's car is found nearby. It would have been difficult to believe. I think something else that really struck the police as difficult to understand was how the couple did not fight back. They just let this guy take control. It was a little too easy. They forgot that everybody responds differently to fear. Some people fight back, like the guy in Dublin, California, but others, like this couple, believe that they had a better chance by complying. The problem for the police is that they were unable to appropriately act on their suspicions. They should not have made their suspicions public, rather simply investigated all possible theories. They should have considered the idea that Aaron could be telling the truth and that he could be lying. The police hurt the investigation by overcommitting to the theory that Aaron was the perpetrator. When Denise was found alive, the police simply changed from murder to a hoax. The police wouldn't acknowledge that they made any type of mistake until Matthew Muller was arrested and connected to the kidnapping. Even here, they weren't really coming clean about their terrible behavior. The police did not want to truly accept responsibility. What lessons can we learn from this case? Unfortunately, police are necessary in a civil society, but there is a high cost to giving them so much authority and not selecting for a high level of critical thinking skills. A few examples of those costs. The police use pseudoscientific tactics like deploying the polygraph. They lie to people they are interviewing, accusing them of crimes when the only evidence is the claim of the interviewee is a low probability event. The police do not change course easily. They often do not have flexible thinking. They become married to their first theory. Not like a Hollywood marriage that breaks up quickly, rather like a fairy tale romance. The police are not too good at math either. Just because an occurrence is unlikely doesn't mean it's impossible. In a lottery, for example, there might be a 1 in 300 million chance of any particular ticket winning, but some people do win the lottery. This particular case highlighted some of the worst behavior that police regularly exhibit. It's a reminder that the criminal justice system is adversarial. A citizen must always be on guard to protect their own rights. In this case, Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn were victimized by a disturbed intruder. When the police were involved, they were victimized again. Before I wrap up this video, I had a few possible Vallejo Police Department slogans that they may want to consider for future use. I have 3 here. If you call us, you're already guilty. Everything you say can and will be distorted into our fanciful narrative. And don't blame yourself for being a victim. That's our job. Those are my thoughts in the case of Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.